Okay, so let me show you how to create the white room effect that the assignment talks about. What I'm looking into in that part of the assignment is simply to place the character on an environment, on a setting, something even, it can be a gray environment. It does not have to be pure white environment. I would suggest to stay away from dark surroundings, because you might need a backlight. You might need a 3-point lighting system with a main light, a few fill lights, and a backlight to create like a dark silhouette on the back of the character. But to keep it simple, try white and gray. Those are industry standards, and the goal with this, with placing the character in an environment, is to move towards industry standards on presentation of characters. It is done that you create a setting where the character is in an environment that you can't really tell what it is, or you can tell where the background meets, the floor plane meets the back wall. You could create a plane on the back and a plane on the bottom. In this case, I'm going to show you how to do it with just one plane. I think it's easier this way. It's less geometry to render, so it's gonna be less stressful on the computer and faster render. The first thing I want to do is double check how the environment is working. So let's go render and let's take a look at the initial. The initial setting has a white background and has the rig showing. So let's turn off the rig. Let's go to the toggle layer explorer, and it's down here now. And rig, that's the node we want to turn off. So let's turn the light bulb off to hide it. And now we only have our character. Okay. The next thing we need to do is create a light and create a plane where we can cast shadows. Even if we use a seamless environment where we do not see the difference between the floor and the back, which is one option you have, you would still have to put shadows on the scene so that we can see a little bit of placement of where the character is. You could also use the non-seamless environment where you kind of see the background. So I'm going to show you how to do that. The first thing we need to do is put him on a plane on the floor. Okay, so let's go here and create on the create geometry standard primitives. Go to the plane option. We have the rig layer selected. So double click on the default layer and go back to plane. Again, object is gonna be created on a hidden layer. Okay, let's see, let's just create a new layer then. Layer 1, environment. Just name everything. There's in this rig there's a few things that are not named correctly, so it's kind of hard to find things if they're not named correctly. So minimize that, and now we create our plane. Okay, now it's going to that layer that we just created, so it's much better. So I just created the plane on the floor as big as I can. And in this instance, what I would like you to do is prevent, let me render it so that you can see, prevent the floating environment. We want to move towards industry standards, and whenever you display a character, unless it's obviously intentional that you left a gap on the sides, we want to create the illusion of a bigger environment. Okay, and the way we do that is extending, making sure that the edges, the front and side edges of our floors are beyond the camera point of view. That way it looks like, there you go, it looks like there's a bigger environment. You see the difference? The other one looked like a floating plane, and this one looks like a long place that you don't really know what's on the sides, but if you turn the camera, it gives you the illusion that there might be another wall or something else over there. Excellent. You can change the color to white. Okay, so you can go there on plane 1 and change the color to white and say okay. It might stay a little bit grayed out. So let's go to the material editor and let's create a standard material and apply it to our plane. So I'm going to go here, assign material to selection with my material selected, and you notice that it immediately starts changing color over there. So for diffuse color, diffuse, I'm going to make it, oh no, I'm not mapping anything. Diffuse, I'm going to make it white, just pure white. And let's see what happens. Let's render, and if you notice you still see a little bit of the gray. Let's make sure that the ambient color is completely white. And what else do we need to change here? Specular is also kind of white. Let's see once we put the lights on the scene how things change. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Where do we get the lights? Hold on. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. That was a phone call that came at the worst moment. Okay, so let's add the light, and then we'll come back to that gray floor. Lights over here. Create lights, and you have a few options there. Let's select standard lighting. I would suggest to try the Skylight if you have the time to render. Skylight will give you a nice feeling of very soft shadows on the scene. You see, it almost looks like what they call the clay render, like very soft shadows. It does increase a little bit the rendering time, so if it's too much, just switch to a target spot, and then let me undo that and make a target spot, and just, you know, put it like this, really big on the scene. Make sure it's in front of the character, and like if you render now, you know, you're gonna see that that's cut off. With the goal with setting a spotlight will be to put it far away as we can, and make the so that we can see the whole scene and the whole character without seeing the, you know, the cone, you know, the area. Oops, sorry. The area that you're going to show. Let me show you what I mean by the cone. Notice how we see this part over here. That's the cone that I'm talking about. Let's go to the Modify tab and click on the target on the main light, and on, where is that option? Let's see. Spotlight parameters. Okay. On the spotlight parameters option, just make sure that hotspot beam, you increase it a lot, as big as you can, until you do not see it anymore. Okay. And you can also play with the placement of the light. So notice that I'm leaving the, you know, the aim to be kind of like in range with the character. If the character moves, it's perfectly fine. You know, it's okay if changes placement. But let's see. You see now I increase that that hot spot so that it's not seen visible. So it creates the effect of a very high, far away light. And here comes the fun part. We need to work now with the shadows. So let's scroll down, and the shadows, let's put it here. Let's turn it on over here on the shadows and render. Let's see how it looks. Okay, if you notice, it starts looking so-so. The only problem is that the shadow keeps going and gets cut off. Okay, so we need to make sure that does not happen. Okay, that at all times we see a shadow on the floor to create the illusion of, you know, an environment. So let's put it up, if you use the other light, you do not have to do all this, okay? And notice once again the shadows, the hot spot is gone, so I need to make sure that, I mean, it's not gone, I'm seeing the hot spot, so the cone, so make sure that you work on that as well to frame that off, okay? And as you render, you just keep your character within that area of illumination. Notice that that the shadows are very visible. It's not good to keep the shadows on pure black unless you're doing a scheme that is like midday or very bright shadows, very bright light. I would say put it kind of gray to make it a little bit lighter. Notice how the shadows tend to get a little bit soft, lighter when you do that. That will help you make the character the focal point, not the shadow, because when you have shadows that are very dark, then we tend to start looking at the shadows, okay? And make sure that you click here on Light Effects Shadow Color and render, see what happens. When you click that on, the changes that you do affect more the way the shadow looks. It's like, look at how dark it is there. That way the shadow responds to the lighting conditions. What did I do? There you go. So there you have softer shadows, they're less noticeable. So the character will stay in be in the main focus while you still have shadows for placement. So after this, I think you're ready. The next thing you want to do is double check on the environment. Go rendering environment. And you see that ambient light over there is dark. Change it to gray. Notice how the floor plane kind of brightens up. So that will help you create a lighter background on your scene. So the lighter the color, the more you're gonna see that this part back here kind of blends with the bottom with the top. The scene will also get a little bit brighter, and the shadows might start disappearing on you. So what you want to do is then go back to the shadows, make them a little darker, and let's see what happens now with the shadows here, okay? You see they start coming back on. You see more noticeable. What kind of shadows we have? We have shadow map. Yes, on the size, double the size up, 1024 maybe. That way you're going to start seeing more defined shadows. Let's render and see if that's, you see, that's a little bit better. And so if you lower the color over here, the color of the shadow, and it starts disappearing a little bit, or looking like it's disconnected or so, increase the shadow map. Make sure that you don't make it like super big. Save your scene right before you render. It's very important, because sometimes the shadow map, because it adds more definition to those shadows, the way it renders it can take more memory and it can crash more easily, okay? And so that's it. If you want to completely seamless environment, you can also switch to, instead of spotlight, you can use a directional light. You can use any of the other lights. Directional. That might also give you, the same effect that you're looking for. But now, you pretty much do what we just did. Oops. Of getting that hotspot to be beyond the camera, and that way you see it starts blending more. So you can just continue moving the light to the side, and then you have a seamless environment there, floor to background, that gives the illusion that the character is standing on a plane. You can also use the other light that we saw, the daylight. So it's after this you should be able to render then your animation in full for presentation. Okay, just make sure that you don't see the spots like that, and that it looks really nicely presentable.